once upon a time. It is something that is happening now. And I know that a lot of federations and sporting events and newspapers and television networks are still struggling with this. Some are moving forward very well, some are not doing so well, and many are disappearing on a daily basis. So what I'm going to start with is two photos which illustrate, and you will have seen these two photos before, and I showed these two photos to the IOC Executive Board for the same reason I'll show it to you. Here, St. John Paul II's passing. The next photo, Pope Francis's inauguration. What's significant about that is obviously it's a very different world between the two, but the first photo here was when London was elected as the host city. The second photo was a year after London delivered the Olympic Games. Part of my job is writing the technical requirements for a host city for the delivery of the Olympic Games, knowing that the changes within a 9-year period or an Olympic cycle period are that significant that no one can actually tell you what's going to be happening in 9 years' time. So there are many things we can control: the accommodation, the accreditations, all of the numbers, so we know how many people are in venues. But the digital part and what is happening in this world is what we're really talking about here, because this is where the media is going. This is the media. Quick digital snapshot, and I'm just going to go across through this fairly quickly and identify what are the key moments that have really occurred over the last 10 years, or since Torino. The first one is Facebook launched in February 2004 and Twitter in March 2006, the month after the Torino Olympics. They're certainly two of the most significant things that have happened to not just the sporting media, but all media, as we'll see how it's worked out in the Olympic Games period. In Torino, not one venue was cabled with the internet. Not one. Yes, you could get internet, but it cost you $680 to get an ADSL put in. So the only people that had the internet in the Olympic Games were AP, Reuters, AFP, and Getty. Everyone else would basically go to a venue, as I used to do when I was working as a journalist at the Olympic Games. You'd go back, you'd write your stories, you'd get your photos, you'd send it out from somewhere, but it was only ever the agencies that could file live from a venue. In 28 June in 2007, Apple brought out the iPhone. That is still, I would say, the most significant event that has happened, not in the telephone industry, but in the media industry. It has completely changed the way the media has had to look at how it delivers content. Beijing, Facebook and Twitter has grown to 100 million and to 6 million. We had the Olympic Stadium was cabled with the internet for the first time, only the Olympic Stadium. So none of the other venues were. We had the opening ceremony, which was the most viewed event that had ever occurred. Coming into Vancouver, Apple did another one. They brought out the tablet. At the time, it was just the month before the Olympic Games, and all of the newspapers who were struggling at the time in dealing with the digital media were saying, this is the solution. We've found this is how the newspaper industry and magazine industry is going to survive. This thing is absolutely perfect within a newspaper landscape. It didn't work for newspapers. It's good, but it hasn't saved the industry. But one thing that shows as well, when you're coming back to an operational thing, we'd already told London at that stage, do not use Wi-Fi in all venues, because Wi-Fi is an unstable thing for the media. They must have connectivity, and Wi-Fi will fall over as soon as 20,000 people turn on their phones. It will interfere with it. As soon as a photographer starts putting 5 meg files through it, it will fall over. And all of a sudden, we had a device where you couldn't plug it in. It had to work on Wi-Fi. And in fact, all of the iPhone and all the mobile devices needed Wi-Fi. So with 2 years to go, we had to completely change the infrastructure for the delivery in London. Vancouver. CTV Rogers was the first broadcaster to broadcast all Olympic events across multiple platforms. I remember in Sydney, where I came from, delivered the Sydney Olympic Games, you had one television station, be it 7 or 10, they would show the Olympic Games on one platform. In Vancouver, all of a sudden, every single event was live on multiple platforms, all phone, internet, and on terrestrial. And at the time, everyone was very scared that what would happen to primetime broadcasts. Would it disappear? Would everyone go and watch it on the telephone and all the audiences would disappear? What CTV Rogers found was that viewers who watched the Olympics on a second screen consumed twice as much television as those who only watched television alone. In other words, it did quite the opposite. It didn't take away traffic, it increased it. We go to London. Facebook now has 900 million followers and Twitter has 140 million. All 31 venues were cabled with the internet in all press locations for the first time. 4G was driving the digital traffic, and specifically for the media. In other words, giving the media an ability to deliver content on other platforms than what they normally would. You had 60% of the traffic to London 2012's website actually came from mobile. That was not even planned for, but 60% of the traffic for an Olympic website came from mobile phones. BBC delivered for the first time at a Summer Games every single Olympic sport live on multiple platforms. They broke all viewing figures for any event that had ever occurred in the UK. NBC had 23 million mobile video streams and about 1,000% increase on Vancouver. Now, after London, going into London, again, everyone was still scared about what would happen with the social media market and with the digital market as far as primetime audiences. You had Mark Lazarus just after London saying that the deluge of online viewership options did not cannibalize the coveted primetime audiences. The digital experience was enhancing the TV experience. So all this great fear over London and Vancouver was really shown to be not the way it was. You had Richard Burgess, we had a meeting, and he said in London over half of the stories for BBC came from social media. In other words, social media was no longer just something that people posted photos on. A major news organisation was BBC, was getting their stories first via social media. Remember the Korean flag incident where it was put up, it was found on Twitter. And there were many cases that was driving news faster than had ever been done before. At the same time, Tom Curley, the president and CEO of the AP, said that you cannot treat 100 million smartphone users as if they were appointment-driven consumers of news. They don't wait for the newspaper to arrive or the television show to come on. They are connected 24/7, 365 by their mobile devices. Now in 2018, that seems fairly obvious, but he was the first person to really say that from a news perspective, that the people who were delivering the news needed to work out how to deliver the news on other devices than the newspaper or the television. We go to Sochi. More people watched and read about the Olympics on a digital platform than traditional television or newspapers. In other words, all of a sudden, this is only 4 years ago, the world had changed so significantly that more people were consuming news and the Olympic Games on digital platforms, internet, mobile, just any digital platform, than got it from newspapers and or television. YLE from Finland had a white label app which OBS produced. They had 337,000 apps downloaded of their Olympic video player. It was started 30 million times during the Sochi Olympics, and it brought down Finland's mobile network. It was so successful. Sochi also introduced free Wi-Fi. I mean, it sounds quite ridiculous. It's only 4 years ago. That was the first Games to introduce free Wi-Fi across all venues. At the same time, just after Sochi, the news came out that more than half of the visitors to the New York Times came from mobile. In other words, its readership and its base of readership had changed so significantly. We go into Rio. Facebook now has 1.78 billion members, Twitter 317 million, and there are many other 100 million plus social media platforms. Digital coverage doubled since London. NBC reached 2.25 billion live streaming minutes, 750 million more than all previous games combined. In Rio, we cabled all photo positions, so every single photo position in every single venue was plugged in so that any photographer, regardless of work for the AP or the suburban newspaper, just go to a photo position, plug in and file live. And that was actually a very significant thing because it meant for the first time any photographer or any member of the press working for a large organisation or small could file live from wherever they are. Again, going back to when I was covering it, or an SI day, you'd go there, you'd write your stories, you'd produce your photos, you'd have time to produce. You might file once a week, you might file once a day, but now all of a sudden, everyone can file. So the small newspaper can get the news out as quickly as the AP. At the end of, obviously in Rio, the Olympic Channel was launched as a part of the ISC's ability to move on and reach that digital market. Pyeongchang and Tokyo. Facebook has now reached 2.2 billion, and Sina Weibo in China alone is now bigger than Twitter worldwide. In other words, when we're walking towards where we're going with both Tokyo and Beijing, we have unbelievable markets that we're going into. 5G is now said to be 10 times faster than the fastest cabled internet, which gives, from a media perspective and a sporting perspective, the ability to, basically it means that you look at a phone, you touch a link and it's there. You can send more, from a media perspective, send more. BBC had to stop sending their videos to the mobile networks in London to slow it down because it would have taken out the mobile networks. In other words, the capacity of the mobile networks was not significant for the usage on the mobile from media devices. So you've got here, basically where we are with the Olympics now is everywhere a seamless connectivity and a connected mobile, digital and social future. But one thing which I think is possibly the most significant period of time in media in such a short period was this Vancouver to Sochi. Vancouver, as I said, was called the second screen Olympics. You had London, which was the social media Olympics, and then Sochi, which was the digital Olympics. In other words, one Olympic cycle of 4 years, the world had changed that significantly. From a sporting event point of view and from a media perspective, had never seen anything like that. We're not talking about 9 years anymore. 4 years, one summer games to another games, had changed that significantly. And that point that it was the first Olympics where more people watched and read on a digital platform than on traditional media. The world has basically changed by then. Just to finish off here, I track media. As a part of the job, I need to know what's happening. So I've just got a few of the key media releases or newspaper pieces that went out in the last 4 years to put it into some sort of time perspective as some of the things that have happened. One of the first was in May 2014, just after the Sochi Olympics, when the New York Times internal report called the Innovation Report, which was all about where is the newspaper industry going, where is the New York Times going, what is happening with the industry. It was called at the time one of the most significant documents of the media age. I can't tell you how many times I read it, and every other newspaper I know read it, and it was spoken about in all the media conferences that you were going to. It was that significant. Just some of those things that it pointed out. This one was coming from a newspaper and magazine business, was quite unbelievable. The need is urgent. Our homepage, which has been the main tool for getting our journalism to readers, but its impact is waning. Only a third of the readers ever visit it. In other words, when I'm in the magazine industry and newspaper industry, all your time has been on the front cover. Everyone buys it by the story on the front cover. New York Times, 4 years ago, found that only 1/3 of its readers were ever even looking at the front page. They weren't coming in from the front page. They were coming in via Facebook. They were coming in because they saw a story somewhere else. And as the New York Times said at the time, Facebook is at the forefront of a fundamental change of how people consume journalism. Social media, again, New York Times piece, the social media network has become a force in publishing because of its news feed. In the last few months, more than half of the visitors in New York Times have come from mobile. So it's not just that they're coming into the Times from a different avenue in the back end, they're also coming in by a different platform, which is mobile. The Atlantic, in March 2015, Facebook is delivering half to 2/3 of newspapers' traffic right now. Now, this is just 3 years ago. You'd imagine that. New York Times, The Guardian, The Mail Online, L'Equipe, their traffic, 2/3 of it is coming from Facebook. Not coming from subscribers, it's coming from Facebook. Simply put, social media is no longer simply social. That came out in 2015. And I remember a meeting I had at the ISC with some senior staff there, and someone said, I don't know about this Facebook stuff. I don't want to put personal photos on it. And it's sort of like, I don't think I've ever put a personal photo on Facebook. It's, from a media perspective, it's a very significant tool. Yes, it can be social, but it also is a lot more than that now. 5G, I've already spoken about and where we're going with that, and we had a meeting just with Paris and LA about that yesterday, and where we'll be going with it. 5G will be in Tokyo, but it'll be a significant change to the way we deliver business or sporting events in the next 5 to 10 years. These two pieces from The Guardian and about the Times, again, coming from the media industry, it might not mean as much to you. For someone with a print background, you're accustomed to the fact that if it makes the editor's cut, gets into the paper, you're going to find an audience. It's entirely the other way around with digital journalists. The realization that you have to go and find your audience, they're not going to come and read it, has been transformative. Then this one, at the New York Times, far too often for writers and editors, the story is done when you hit publish. At the Huffington Post, the article begins its life when you hit publish. I run the Olympic Information Service, the news service for the Olympic Games. The biggest issue, the number of issues we're coming up with, is trying to find writers that will work in a social media background, but this one particularly, it is no longer good enough for us to just put an article up on info, which will be buried within 5 minutes because of another 30 articles that have come up. We need to become far better at reaching our audience directly, which we are doing a lot of at the moment. The future is more digital than print. Sounds obvious, but that's New York Times, January 2017. 90% of the 500 billion visitors to The Guardian, the largest newspaper site in the world, digital newspaper, content in 2014 came from smartphones. 90% of their readership came from a phone. And as I said, if your mobile isn't in your pot of power, you haven't got a pea to piss in. Or you had Mark Thompson, New York Times, there won't be many journalistic destinations in a smartphone future. That one's scary if you're an owner of a newspaper. It should also be scary if you're an owner of a sport. Because how many sports organisations, you go to IF websites today, or the Olympic.org, I put up my story today, I leave it be. Your job is not done by putting a story on a website. The job is now you have the abilities and tool to be able to go directly to an audience, to build your audience and to grow your audience, and not be reliant on a newspaper or a television station covering your sport. print journalism has maybe another 10 years. This article, which was only from last week, what will become of Sports Illustrated? It's a long-form piece. It's a magnificent, really, really well-written piece. But if you really want to understand the power of a newspaper or a magazine in sport and to this industry, and this was, I think, the beacon, with L'Equipe and Gazzetta dello Sport, but to understand that, but also how it's failed. It's not dead yet, but it's not far away. And finishing up, and there's sort of a circle. Facebook has become so important, not just to business, but to society. And it's very much in the news now. And we already at the ISC are having to change the way we do business because of the new laws within Europe, because of Facebook. I'll just finish up with one thing. I know some of you will know the answer to this one, but I'll ask you. Get to see a show of hands, anyone who knows who this person is. Okay, a hint. Forbes 30 under 30. New York Times called him. He is fast becoming one of the most influential people in the news business. It's not Rupert Murdoch. It's not Oprah Winfrey. It's not Conrad Black. Not one person in here even knows who he is. His name is Greg Mara, and he writes the codes for Facebook's newsfeed. And as the New York Times said here, many of the people who read this article will do so because Greg Mara, 26, a Facebook engineer, calculated it as the kind of thing they might enjoy. Mara's team designs the code that drives Facebook. And I said that 2/3 of the world's news is now coming through this medium. It might not be the medium of the future, but the industry has changed so much. From a sporting perspective, and I produce all of the content for the Sydney Games, and I almost get frustrated today with so many avenues to go on. We had a magazine to put it in. That was it. No, the only place you can read those articles today is to go to the Olympic Museum and sort of and scour through, and if you can find it, 1,700 pages of content. And today, it's challenging in the media world, but for a sporting organisation, of which we're, of course, one going through exactly the same thing, it has enormous opportunities because it gives you all the vehicles and all the tools where you can take complete ownership of your own audience. You can build that audience, you can reach that audience, and no longer is it necessarily that important if AP turns up to your event, even though I'd take the AP at the moment. So. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Anthony before he disappears away? While you're thinking, there's one question I was interested to ask you. I mean, as a journalist with the BBC, we're lucky because we're kind of always towards the top of the accreditation list. But when you're now working out who to give accreditation to at something like the Olympic Games, it is, you've just been pointing out, it's not just your established media. So how do you actually work out who should be entitled to an accreditation? Because some of the more influential people might be someone you've never even heard of, with no organisation really but behind them at all.
If you came from the press, you'd understand the answer to that one. But the rights holders get accreditations as a part of their contract. The press get, we give the ownership of that process to the National Olympic Committees. Right, so what we do is we give a quota. In fact, I've got the Tokyo press accreditation quota meeting next month, and we will allocate a number of accreditations, 6,000 total, to National Olympic Committees. I cannot determine which organisation should and should not get an accreditation from the US or from Iran or from Turkey or from anywhere else. The NOCs are responsible for the athletes that go to the games. The NOCs are also responsible for the media that go.
So how should, for example, the United States Olympic Committee judge who should go in future? Because, I mean, looking ahead to Tokyo, it might be a vastly different marketplace in 2 years' time.
Well, I mean, if you take the USOC, they actually have an accredited working group like we do. I have numerous people from around the world, news editors from numerous newspapers. The USOC does exactly the same. They have many of the AP editors from around the USA. They understand their social media market, so there are social media writers and bloggers and different people in it, but then they put together a list from that. They also have an application process from people who would like to go, who maybe haven't gone. You take Beijing. Beijing was far, as you know, from a news story, it was the biggest story of the year. So you had a lot of extra people who wanted to come to the Olympic Games because of the fashion industry, because of Tibet, because of all of the other stories that are associated with China. It's not just about sport when it comes to the Olympic Games.
Has anyone got a question at all? Going.
Thank you very much.
Anthony, thank you so much. That was really, really interesting. Could our panelists please come up for the next session, and I'll introduce you once you are here. So I think this follows on very nicely from what Anthony's been talking about. It was so interesting looking back. It's amazing, really. I mean, I was a BBC's Olympics correspondent for London, and it makes me feel like an absolute fuddy-duddy looking back at some of the statistics and seeing just how much it's changed in the 6 years since. But the millennials and the media is what we're going to be talking about now. There's the holy grail, isn't it, of what everyone's trying to capture, these mysterious millennials. So we'll try to at least get under the surface a little bit in this session and come up with some advice, and perhaps, obviously you can give us some advice from the audience as well, which we can learn from up here on the platform. But let me introduce you to all our panelists in alphabetical order by surname. Anyways, we've got Motta there, who's one from the end, who's a digital manager of the International Basketball Federation. Age 6 when you first picked up a basketball?
Yeah,
just a few years.
Yeah, age 6.
On Motta's right is Jerome Martin, who's the global head of marketing for AFP. More than 25 years experience in marketing and sport business. So you've definitely seen some change in your time, Jerome, which we can talk about.
You won't stop.
Sonia Nicevic, is that the correct pronunciation?
I've
been practicing it for the last hour for your surname. Head of Communications for the International Sport Press Association, with more than 9,000 members worldwide. So again, obviously a very influential body. And Nikki, you might have seen her in the panel session this morning downstairs, a digital manager of the International Hockey Federation, and you were the head of media, weren't you, for hockey at Rio 2016?
Yeah, along with my colleague, communications manager. The two of us took that role. So interesting, I'd never done that before. So very interesting.
I think we'll start, if I may, with the two people working directly with the sport. So it'll be interesting for just to set the scene a bit, what you are trying to do at the moment to engage these mysterious millennials.
Unicorns, I was talking about earlier. Yeah, I mean, I think I just squeeze into the millennials myself, just about. But yeah, we had a big change in what we're doing as an international federation. I think I spoke earlier, I'm not sure if any of you were there, about how we were almost out of the Olympic Games, which really gave us a big kick to try and change what we were doing, ensure that we were engaging the right audience, ensure that we're much more present on digital platforms, because that was one of our downfalls back in 2012. But if you look at that presentation just now by Anthony, everybody, it was very, very small for everybody. So we've done a lot of that and trying to build our audience and trying to nurture.
Give us some examples of some of the kind of things that you're doing.
Well, I was talking to you earlier about a lot of the things we have to do is outside of the game. So obviously our game is amazing, along with all the other sports around. But our athletes are awesome. The footage is amazing. But we have to try and engage the fans in a different way. So we look at different types of content. So for example, which we were chatting earlier, we had a thing called Social Sofa, which was at our last event last year. So basically that was something that was kind of side production to what the game is about. And we invited the athletes up after the game. We chatted to them and we spoke. We had a rule of 1 or 2 questions about the game. And then after that, it was just free for all. We were playing games, we were chatting to them, we were giving the fans things that they want to know about the athletes that they aspire to be. So that was really important, an important message for I think a lot of IFs around that. You need to make sure that you're giving your fans the other content that people really want to see, and the personalities of the athletes. That's what our biggest change was, I think, and the use of user-generated content as well was really, really important to really engage with the fans and people around the world.
Okay, let me ask the same question then to Motto.
Led by our digital content manager, Rina, we created this segmentation bit for our content, where we try to give the fans what they want, where they want. We are not trying to bring them in, so that's the first rule, is to segment the content depending on the platform, depending on the region, depending on the age group. But the key thing for millennials is the attention span is very short, and the fact that they want to be entertained. So we some of the examples that we've made in the past year were to add sort of funny graphics to our videos, because our overall sort of content strategy is really based on videos. Last year we developed this. We integrated this technology called WSC, which helped us go from creating just 3 clips per game to over 700. So you go from just not only a content producer, but you actually become a content creator, and you try to adjust and you help create this new thing. So some of the examples is that if a basketball player is shooting on many three-pointers, and we call him heat shot. So the ball comes on fire, and we put this on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and those are the kind of things that the young audience I think would like to see. It's not the broadcast type content with the highlights and the generic things that were done 5 years ago, but some things that are more entertaining, more fun to add.
I suppose the difficulty for you by sending out 700 clips from a match rather than 3 or 4 is you're losing control, you're losing that editorial decision, you're not deciding what people should be watching. The editorial decision is actually being made by the fans instead. Is that a little bit scary in some ways?
No, and not necessarily, because it's actually in some way it makes our job easier, because now
send out everything.
Our fans know what they want. They have certain expectations. I mean, you look at Netflix and Facebook and all those. They consume these type of platforms, so they already have certain expectations, and you should deliver it up to their standards. So it actually drives the strategy for you to build that type of level. So. Like Anthony said, like if the website is not up in 2 seconds, then you're losing your fans, and if the content is not cool, then you're losing as well your fans. So these are the type of things that it's not necessarily scary, but it's actually setting the tone for us, for the content, and for the overall strategy of FIBA.
So Jerome, how does an organization like AFP begin to adapt to all this?
We have the same issues with IFAs, in fact, regarding the millennials. We always have to decide the strategy. There's 2 strategies on millennials. You can follow the millennials, always run after them, and like this, you are always after the success, I think, and there's innovation. You always produce some new content, new kind of content, new kind of delivery of content. And like this, you are in positive mode, aggressive mode on the market, on the millennials target. So definitely, it's exactly the same issues. Always produce differently, shorter, on new delivery modes. For example, at AFP at this time, we are starting to have kind of chatbot on conversational mode. Which means we are going to deliver exactly the same news content, but on another way to fit to millennials. So always try. Sometimes you fail, and sometimes you succeed.
Your microphone's just popping in and out. I don't know if there's something we can do with
probably I will take the
microphone. Yeah, take that's probably a good idea. Sonia, I mean, obviously for you represent so many different people. What do you think, where's it going, and how can you help those people you represent to engage with these key people?
I think that in this particular case, AIPS is very specific because it represents both the international media from all around the world. We have member associations from 160 countries providing a global voice for sports journalism, but we also work very closely with international sports federations to make sure that the journalists' voice are getting through to what federations are doing. And this is where you can see how the new digital wave of media is pressing and important for both federations and for journalists and media companies. And one of the things that AIPS continues to do in this sense is the Young Reporters programs that we have. And what every one of my co-panelists here have said is that it's a case of producing a different kind of content, a new kind of content, and everybody agrees that that content is digital and that it's social media. And I think an important step here is also that you don't just need to reach the millennials, you also need to train young people to get the content out and to produce the kind of content that you want people to see. And AIPS does this through the Young Reporters programs, where we give young journalists international experience in covering an event, and where they get to see not just how media from across the world are covering this event, but also how the federations are getting their stories out and how they can actually help. And then these young people from all over the world go back to their own countries with a different perspective and can help the media in their own landscapes go up to a different, higher level.
Do you think the media at the moment are doing enough to listen to those young journalists who might actually have some much better, fresher ideas than the people who have been doing it for 20 years or so, like me, the old fuddy-duddies, as I describe myself?
Honestly, I think there's still a long way to go for young people to be given the voice they need in media. And it's something that we discuss a lot in terms of what these Young Reporters programs mean. It's a vicious circle of young people not being given opportunities to cover events because they don't have experience. But then how do they get the experience if they don't actually go to the events? And that's what we try to do through the Young Reporters programs, in supporting these young people to then go out and decide if they want to do media for an international federation, if they want to work for social media, if they want to work for their newspapers, as they've done always, but with a new perspective.
It was interesting, during Pyeongchang, I was watching some of the Olympic Channel coverage, which obviously Anthony knows more about than me, but it's still relatively new since Rio. But one of the ways that the Olympic Channel used to try to get numbers up was to bring I don't know his name, but it was a YouTube sort of sensation or whatever from Denmark or somewhere in Scandinavia. It was one of their main front people. They'd gone out of this kind of typical journalist circles, and they'd gone to the YouTube site. But that, again, presumably, it means for a young journalist, you don't need to go through the established platforms. You can make your own way and then get picked up by the Olympic Channel or whoever else.
Yeah, it's a case of empowering young people and giving them the confidence and the kind of boost at the very beginning to say that these are the basics of journalism, this is what you need to know, but then at the same time, you need to be your own journalist in this current moment and to get the message out in a way that was different 3 or 4 years ago, that was different 1 year ago, like Anthony said, in terms of how the Olympics have changed, how digitally things have changed. The same goes for us. At the first Young Reporters program that AIPS did, that I was a part of as a young reporter, that was in 2011 at the Shenzhen Universiade. There was no talk of social media within what young people were told about coverage. Now, in 2017 and 2018, that's one of the first lectures that we give in terms of how are you going to engage through Twitter? How are you going to give this article life? As Anthony said again, this is where it starts.
Motter's nodding, and Jerome.
I really agree with you. We at first to fit now digital audience rather than our traditional medias. So we always now focus the coverage like this. Then after we delivered the deeper analysis and deeper content to our traditional media, but it changed all the market, the media market changed, definitely.
Yeah, actually a funny story, and I'm pretty sure if you ask any of your siblings or your younger siblings, you ask them what do you want to do later on, as most of them will tell you, I want to be a YouTuber. And this is part of now, it should be part of everyone's digital strategy or digital framework, is you have to have sort of some influencer program within your content strategy, because that's what the millennials are looking up to now. 90% of them will tell you that among their top 10 celebrities, there will be 2 or 3 that are Logan Paul or some of those even gamers that are on esports that are just as influencers, and will have hundreds and millions of followers on each channel that they own. So, and it's one key point that you have to add in your overall strategy is to have some kind of influencer for you to target those audiences, because they will not listen to the normal traditional way like they used to, like the 25 to 35 age bracket that is mostly on Facebook and Instagram right now.
Nikki.
And now you know that, like, through analytics, through all of the platforms that we have are accessible to us.
Should I use that microphone again?
Sure.
You're breaking up slightly. It might be clearer if you use that. Try them both and combine. They'll be able to hear you, hopefully.
Should we pass
that
it
one's
on?
working. So yeah, I'm just saying, what was I saying? That it's accessible to us now to see all the data and to find out what these people, all of our fans across, all the ages, what they actually like outside of the sport as well. So for example, I was looking the other day, we have a high percentage of people who've just bought cars in the last year. So things like that, or they like comedy, or they like music. So why not, like Mota's saying, use that to find influencers that can help you to grow your audience, because they like other things. They don't just like your sport. They like a lot of things. So it's really important to use that data and the analytics that you can find to really boost your fan base.
And in a sport like hockey, how do you go out and find influencers? The key ones probably aren't just people who play hockey. They're people who might be doing something completely different, who can promote hockey but have got a following from something else. Because let's be honest, just by playing hockey, you might not necessarily have the kind of level of following that you're going to need for someone to be a really strong influencer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's quite a few famous hockey players that they're not hugely famous, but they're married to famous people. So we have a good cross.
That's the secret, is that marry off the players.
Yeah, we marry them all off to rugby players and cricket players and stuff. Yeah, actually, that does happen. So we can kind of use that a little bit. But yeah, I think, like I said, back to the data again. So you need to find out what those fans are actually liking apart from your sport, and try and dig into that. Try and use it in your content. Try and add it into your content. And even work with the other sports. Like Mota, I know Mota very well, and we talk a lot, and we have other people in different federations who talk about the different sports and what they're doing. And we look at it not as competitors, we look at it trying to help each other.
Yeah.
What can we do together? Even ice hockey, we've tried to do some things with ice hockey to, we're the real hockey, but still, we can have a joke with them a little bit. But things like that, why not? We should be working together. We're all here for the sport, right? We're not, okay, we're competing, but we should be trying to get sport out there to all the younger generation.
Something I want to pick up with you, Mota, which you mentioned earlier, and I let it go at the time. I thought I'd come back, and now is my moment to come back. You said something which I hear so often. You said millennials have got very short attention spans.
Correct.
Lots of people say it. Yesterday, Jonathan Davis from Eurosport was talking. I don't know, did you hear his presentation? He didn't. He was talking about augmented reality and showing off some of what Eurosport had done in Pyeongchang through their Cube, which is really, really impressive. He said his argument is actually millennials haven't got a short attention span. They just have a much higher quality threshold. If you give them quality, they will stay with you. The problem is at the moment, a lot of people aren't giving them the right quality.
That's actually very fair. I actually very much agree with it. One of the strategies that we've implemented, because even before joining FIBA, I was working for the FIVB as their digital manager there, and we've noticed that if you don't put the most important action in the first 5 seconds of the video, then you lost them. Yeah. Then you'll see the drop of your video into the whole view. So I completely agree with him. It's not that they are more demanding. Because that's their expectations, that they know, they've seen, they're consuming the content on certain media like Sport Bible and all those platforms that actually give them the content that they want, and it's formatted to their needs. And if you don't do something similar to catch their attention in the first 5 seconds, then you're just one swipe away to be forgotten, basically.
And how do you use influencers? Because in your sport, unlike Nikki's, I mean, you're lucky, you've got some influencers with tens of millions of followers on social media. So how do you manage to use them to engage with the right audience for you?
So besides the program that we're using with our players, so we syndicate the content to them, because what this tool that we used for the videos helped us as well publish the individual videos for each player on each game and for each national federation as well, because we're trying to support them in their strategy as well. But how we use them is we try to get in touch with them to see how we can. So we worked as well last year with Sport Bible to live stream our U19 World Cup, and it worked extremely well because in some sports the youth events are not are sometimes like the second tier, but us at FIBA we actually treat them as our like similar to one of our main events, and we live stream them all. And we've noticed even now an Asia U16 basketball event had over 5.6 million views on just live streaming, and it's things like this. And we try to approach them, offer them, tell them like, hey, I think that your audience is going to be keen to look at this, and then we worked something out with them. Someone like Sport Bible, they requested only certain specific games, like for the US, for Brazil, or for France, and then the other ones they put them on their other channels because it's a network. But it's a matter of approaching and providing them with something. What do you have to offer? And the videos is what they're looking for. If you offer them content, then they will always be happy, because that's what usually they want to have. They want to syndicate your content.
So Jerome, for an organisation like AFP, I mean, it must be quite uncomfortable listening. You're being attacked from all corners. You've got the athletes, the influencers who have obviously got an awful lot of power now. They didn't have for nearly so much 10, even 7 or 8 years ago. You've got different news sources cropping up that didn't exist 5 years ago. I mean, how does an organisation like AFP adapt to this and move forward?
It's only a new channel, new tools for us. Now we have direct contact with athletes, for example, through social networks. The thing who changed a lot is now that we don't receive press release. We receive first the infos through the social network, through the Twitter's athlete accounts, for example. So it's a new way of communication for us. So to get the infos, but also to send our content. Also for the IFIs, we work sometimes for the IFIs to create content from them, and we first push now on digital audience, and then after we are using this content on a traditional way. But it's not, we didn't, Anthony explained very well, all that digital audience and traditional media can work together already and continue to work together. Not one destroy another one. It's something is complementary, I think.
And Sonia was talking about the importance of listening to the young voices and taking them on. What are AFP trying to do in that area?
They took a huge space at the end. You know it already. Now the strategy is really digital, as I told you. So the young journalists take really a huge place in the team, especially in Pyeongchang. Anthony knows that we had many young people who started for the first time Olympics during Pyeongchang, and we see that every 4 years, as you mentioned, the landscape change, and we have to adapt the journalism, the way we are working, and we have to change also the mind of the journalist. So that's very interesting. I just come back at my first point. We follow on this. We are not in front of the wave, in fact. It's the bad thing.
Nikki, in some ways, is this new era help a sport like hockey? Because traditionally, as we go back 20 years or so, hockey would get coverage every 4 years, really big international coverage around an Olympic Games, and it'd be very hard for you to get into the newspapers much in between. But now if we're saying you don't need the newspapers, actually you've got so many more opportunities, outlets available to a sport like yours that weren't there. So actually in terms of marketing a sport, it's much easier now than it has been. You've got more control, more opportunities than you would have had a decade or two ago.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also as athletes, so I was an athlete before, and only stopped 5 years ago, and the difference between then and now for the athletes to be able to promote themselves, to be able to market themselves, it's huge for them, and especially for a smaller sport. You're like you said, they couldn't even get themselves onto TV show or onto whatever. So, but now they're able to develop that themselves, market themselves, become an influencer themselves without having to worry about the TV taking them on. And as a sport, it's changed a lot. We are on broadcast now. Last year we had 130 plus broadcasters showing our event, but we're now flipping again, where it's changing to what's our strategy going to be? Is it going to be a little bit more digital? We're trying to make sure to carve out the digital rights for us as well, because it's really important, and broadcasters are getting a lot better and kind of working with us as well, understanding that there's no point in them having exclusive rights all the time, because if we work together, then we can grow the sport together. So that's a really important point, that if anyone out there is going for the broadcasters, to ensure that you carve out those rights, because it's really important for you, and it's also important for them. As I said, it's a huge change for hockey, and to be able to promote and use social media platforms to get the sport out there, and the athletes, which are our main, we're the key stakeholders of the sport, of the athletes, and we need to make sure that we work with them. Like Mota has an influence program, we had an ambassador program as well, so we had an athlete from all the different countries, and to kind of promote them, because as you said, we don't have huge stars, so we need to, as the IF, we need to be the ones helping them, and
Sorry, my microphone falls apart. Carry on.
Through digital, that's an easy way to do it. It's really successful.
I'm going to open this up to questions in a moment, so if you've got a question, please prepare it. One more question to you, Sonia, but before I do that, I was talking to you before about news organisations and how they need to adapt to millennials. But what about putting the boot on the other foot and saying to these sports organisations, what's your advice from more of the journalistic perspective of what the people to your left and one to your right need to do to adapt as well, so that they're more open to getting the kind of coverage which your journalists might be able to provide?
And this is something that we were talking about before. The important part is using these new digital platforms, which are so much about identity, about every single user having their own profile on so many platforms, and using it to be a part of a movement, and to explain that FIBA or the Hockey Federation is not just a case of telling you about basketball and what the federation is doing, but that within it, FIBA and hockey are part of a movement, are part of, for example, getting out content related to gender and women in sport, for example, on March 8th, on International Women's Day. And this is where I think people will feel more involved in the coverage. And if I, for example, see something I like on March 8th through that, then maybe I'll come back to the social media platform again on the 9th and on the 10th, and maybe I'll follow. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, how young people are more attracted to different kinds of content. You see one thing that that you identify with, and then you stick with it for a while. And here attention spans are getting lower in that sense, but also to a certain way, loyalty is still what it was before.
Okay, well, as promised, let's open it up to the floor. I think we've got a microphone somewhere if you have a question. I'm hoping after lunch now, nicely refreshed, we've got a few questions. How are we getting on? Come on, someone be brave and put your hand up. There we go. Gentleman in the middle there. Someone's coming to switch it on. It's always a fundamental start. New batteries, please.
I speak out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Guillaume from EBS. I have one question. Don't you think that there is a space where you can enlarge the audience by providing more education and use of socials to provide more education because it's a one point to reach out of your specific audience who already love your sport, already are experts, but there is a large part of the community that don't necessarily have the knowledge of the skills to understand the specificities of the sport to get attached to this. And I think socials and digital media is a good tool to educate more understand the difficulties that the athletes are facing or the challenges that they are accomplishing. And don't you think there is an area to enlarge again your audience next to that?
Who would like to pick up on that? Go on then, Martin.
Sure. I mean, I think overall, specifically when you look at the main platforms that we have, Facebook, Instagram, and everything, you're only looking at if you take a diagram of your audience, you're only targeting the main one, the one that is at the core. If you want to target the rest of them, you need to pay because you need to use the advertising money on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But there's definitely an area for targeting these new audiences by linking the sport to a cultural reference. So basketball to music, basketball to art, basketball to something else, and this is the way where you actually expand your audience in that way. I fully agree with you that the only thing that is missing in that entire equation is the resourcing, and try to put it all together and try to find the right balance as well, because if you do too much of one, you're going to piss off the other type of fans, and if you do too much of the other, you're going to piss off the other fans. So it's about finding the right balance for your content.
Anybody else like to add to that? Okay. Anyone else got any questions from the floor? Gentlemen towards the back.
This is to the gentleman from AFP. My name is Sandeep. I'm a sports writer. With the number of sports journalists actually dwindling at the games, because newspapers and news agencies are reducing the number of people they're sending, how many reporters in the last two Olympics did you depute who only reported for digital media?
I'm speaking under the control of Anthony. I think it was 150 in 6 languages, and especially we dedicated coverage on India during these Olympics.
And how many just for digital media? That's general reporters, isn't it?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know.
Anthony, do you want to take them back? Yeah.
The media usage.
Could you all hear that at the back? Just repeat some of that again, Anthony, for those who
one of the big changes to the media numbers for Pyeongchang was that the agencies AP, Reuters, AFP, and Getty, well, forget Getty for a moment, so I only do photo, but those 3 biggest agencies, over 50% of their accredited persons were photographers. That's grown from 25 to 30% in the last 2 games. Well, actually 2 games as far as going back just 4 years. So it's just showing the importance of the image over and above the text, so balancing it a lot more.
Thank you, Anthony. Anybody else got a question?
James, I have a question. Jay Stewart, I have a question in general. I mean, one of the comments that was made before was that younger people have short attention spans. Which may or may not be true, but another characteristic seems to be that they don't want to pay for anything. And they will search for opportunities to get things for free. And if you are always satisfying people that are not going to pay you, I'm wondering what the model is, or what is the business model for being able to satisfy them? Who is going to pay the bill for doing that?
Yeah. Nikki, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, well, I would hope our partners, commercial partners, that's where it's going to have to go. You're going to have to find that revenue from another place. So for me, it's going to be our partners. And the thing is, you're going to have to, I think it's okay now, you're going to have to help them to understand the return on investment on that, though. You know, spending money on the content. Okay, they're not going to pay for it, but they're getting this much viewership of their logo or whatever it is, or those sort of things, you know. And people, and then now you have the adverts where you can choose to opt in or opt out, or if you want to pay, then you know, you're not going to get an advert. So maybe I think people are a bit more used to having the adverts as well. So yeah, there has to be many other ways in your strategy to ensure that you're going to get the revenue back, but that's going to have to come through your commercial partners. But it has to be a huge joined up effort as well, and helping them understand where their return on investment's coming from. But I think there's definitely platforms out there, I've been speaking to a few over the last couple of days, that are going to help that. They really are. They have amazing platforms that are showing you exactly how much, a bit like in the media, old media, where you know how much an advert is worth in a newspaper. We're going to be able to do that with our digital videos and also with images. So there's huge potential there, and I think it's definitely going to be a driver.
Anybody else? Yes, one. Is that a can right at the back? Right at the back in the corner there.
Hi, Clovis Casali, France 24, France 24. Just one question. Everybody's saying television's dead, television shows are over, and so on. What's your point of view on how, what's the future for sports television shows, and how social networks could fusion, or how they could be a mix between social networks and television shows in order to keep television alive?
Jerome, do you want to have a chat about television?
It's absolutely not dead. It's complementary, definitely. There's a space for traditional broadcast, and there's space for digital audience. And we can mix, definitely, both. You told previously that we saw 10 years ago that people look at the TV and at the same time on the second screen. It's still the same. You can change on the system to another each time, so there's really space for them. It's also not the same way to feed content and to speak on each television and digital audience.
It's interesting. I was talking to Gregory Boll from La Liga after we did the interview downstairs earlier, and he was saying he believes that television actually is the next revolution. That television hasn't even started. They're still so basic televisions, but you're going to have touch screen. You're going to have so many developments. So what you see at the moment is just a screen. It's going to be there's so many different ways that it can develop over the years. And actually, in 10 years' time, actually the millennials or whoever they might be called, in 10 years' time, might actually be engaging with the television as much as anything else. Yeah. But I don't know if you guys agree with that.
No, for shows, I think it's also. It's similar. I don't think that they're dead. It's just about finding the right format for each platform. An hour show on TV will not fit on Facebook live streaming. You'll have to probably cut it in 5 different pieces and then publish it on several occasions, depending on where and when your audience is online. So it's about segmenting that content and customizing the content for your audience. Depending on the platform, whether it's on a mobile application, whether it's on the website, or whether it's on the Facebook page.
We've talked a lot about millennials. What about those who are younger than millennials?
Isn't that illegal?
Not trying to get them to engage with your sport, hopefully.
So.
I think that we've come to a point where those younger than millennials are becoming the target group, the real target group. And it's a case of finding a way to reach out and see what it is that keeps them interested. And I think it's very much what we've said here, that it's, again, a thing of higher quality expectations, not attention spans particularly, but finding a way to reel people in younger generations. And it's not just video, I think, either. I think it's written as well, as I'm sure Jerome would agree. And we had a very interesting analogy in one of our, again, young reporters courses, where we said that in written, the headline and the first paragraph, the introduction, are like a first date. This is where you pull people in and hopefully make them go all the way to the end of the article. And it's not just a case of that texts are becoming shorter. There's a lot of long form written. There's a lot of things that are interesting and that people will read if you pull them in the right way. And I think that this goes especially for the younger generations, The new millennials?
But in a way, is it not just the millennials or the younger, the millennials? Everyone's changing. I mean, if I'm honest, it's much rarer now that I get to the end of an article than it might have been 10 years ago, because I've probably got so many other potential distractions. It's not just one generation. We've all got lots of distractions around us now.
Yeah, definitely. We change with the society, so it makes sense to follow and to get involved. Also, like the millennials, definitely. As the journalism, the traditional journalism change, we change. We consume the news differently than 10 years ago. Definitely, I could see the change. I think you agree with that, Sanja.
Yeah.
And I think as well the content, not just video content. We found that stats, for example, so our sport is quite a lot of stats, as a lot of sports are, but not just sending the video out with just the video, you need to include some stats now as well, and different things that are popping up, like Mota's already said as well, but the stats are really driving, like most people come to our website to see the stats. Mm-hmm. So for us, our new strategy is to really work on that and make sure that data is the main thing now for our website. And that will filter down into our social media posts as well. So our videos will pop up with something, you know, if someone scores, then it'll be like, oh, that's his 5th goal of the tournament, or whatever it is. That's what people want to see more and more. And that will keep them engaged as well, or ask questions as well. That's another good point to point out, that you need to ask people questions. I'm a millennial myself, and if you don't ask me something, I'm probably going to get bored. I'm not going to do it. Like, or if you ask me to vote for something, I'll do it, and maybe I'll stay to see the end. There's the sort of things that you don't just pump out video, you need to make sure that you're keeping people engaged. It's the same when it used to be all about likes, and, you know, how many likes have you got? That's nothing. I mean, you need to have the engagement. The engagement rate is really important, and the only way to do that is to ask something of the audience.
Talking of which, it's time to ask the audience to say thank you very much to you in a minute. But thankfully, we haven't got too many millennials in the audience, because if we did, they probably would have stopped listening about 39 and a half minutes ago. I can see, without being mean to the Inside the Games guys, but they're the millennials, and they've been typing away for at least the last half hour, although they've got deadlines to hit, so you're excused, you're typing. But I hope, well, I'm sure, actually, that it was a really interesting panel for all of you to listen to. Thank you very much, all 4 of you, for coming onto the stage for us today. I will ask you to leave the stage, and we're going to have a couple of presentations now. So the topic now is, my microphone is completely falling apart, is thinking locally, how to make the most of local media as you prepare for events in new locations. And we're going to have a couple of short presentations, one after the other. I'll introduce both speakers to you now, and they can then alternate, as it were. The first speaker is going to be Pawina Singh-Borana, who's a TV presenter, the CEO of Platinum Creation. She presents a program called World 360, which is an investigative documentary TV program. And then we're going to also hear from Kitasak Kolosoweska, who's the vice president, probably the longest and most impressive job title of anybody I've introduced this week, who's the Vice President of Business Development, the Corporate Division, Total Access Communication Public Company Limited. But first of all, may I introduce to the stage Pawina.
My podium. I'm a chief exec of Platinum Creation, a company engaged in communication consulting and to do the event organizer and TV production. I also work as TV presenter for World 360 Degree, an award-winning Thai TV documentary here in Thailand. And I started 16 years ago. I have been to probably more than 100 countries around the world. And this job has given me such a great opportunities to learn the world I always get asked, what is the best country in the world that we should go to? I haven't got the answer, because I have liked all the countries I've been to. But if you ask me about what is my memorable destination, if I have any or not, I will say yes, of course. The first one is Algeria. That's the first day when I arrived. We went to film at the flea market, and after I had the henna on my hands, I got arrested and sent to jail. You know why? Because I took a photo of a handsome guy, and he was a policeman. In Algeria, it's a big no-no to take a photo of any policeman. And it's like these two highlights, we need to know the law of any country we visit. The next one is me in Bhutan. The one in the middle was the Crown Prince of Bhutan. I had a very good video interview with him, but it wasn't allowed to be broadcasting because I hadn't thought the prior approval from the Royal Secretariat Office, and that's the rule in Bhutan. It's highlighted that we need to know the rules of any country we visit as well. Sorry. And this is me in South Korea. This is the country that I have been to every year for more than 10 years to promote the Korean tourism for Thai audiences. And last year, we promoted the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. South Korea has been very successful in promoting tourism here in Thailand. They do it a very smart way. They give me the different theme each year, and the rest just let me to create my own storytelling. Thai visitors have been the top group of international visitors to South Korea in the past 10 years. What I have just talked about is highlights the significance of cultural understanding. It's good to know, to understand, and to be part of. If you are able to, you should get the locals to be involved. This will increase a long-term relationship, and it's like growing together, stronger together, and then you get a bigger community. This approach, I think it should work very well in the sport business world. Now looking at the sports media, I would say in most countries in the world, there is a mix of international and local media. When it comes to the sports, of course, international media consists of, you get pay TV, internet includes streaming media, the website. However, those ones focus is mainly on the top sports and the elite sport people. As the local media consists of, you get TV, newspaper, print and online, radio, outdoor, indoor, and online by itself. This provides a local perspective to fit to the target audience. And now, I would like to talk about Thailand as your local market. This is Thailand. Thailand is a developing country, of course. The size around 500,000 square kilometers. The population just under 70 million. When you look at the GDP per capita, just under 6,000 US dollar. And this is the major tourist destination. When you talk about the main sports here, I would say the Thai boxing and soccer, that's a very, very extreme here, as well as golf. What you are currently seeing in Thailand at present is that sports tourism is growing very, very fast. I would like to show you the short video that I produced for SAT, what stands for Sport Authority of Thailand to show at the recent ITB Berlin Travel Trade Show. Let's go.
From north to south and east to west, Thailand region have a remarkable attraction for those who love to exercise and recreational activity. You will enjoy your favorite activity among fabulous facility and beautiful nature and experience the uncompared. Thailand, it's the dream destination for sport, with potential in all aspects, fully equipped with resources, logistics, and facility with world-class and sports service with a warm welcome. Thailand has facility to support a wide variety of sport. More than 300 golf courses, bike lanes accessible in every province. Bike events available twice a week. More than 104 events year-round. Host marathon event monthly. More than 5,000 boxing gyms. Number 1 Scuba Diving Club in the world. More than 50 clubs available, especially in the southern region. Thailand enthusiastically welcomes tourists and everyone from around the world. World Popular Series in Thailand. In 2018, Thailand will be hosting various international and Asian sports events. FIM Superbike World Championship, 23rd to 25th March 2018, Chang International Circuit, Buriram. The Princess Mahachakrisarinthan's Main Cup Tour of Thailand 2018, 1st to 6th April 2018, 6 stages. SportAccord International Federation Union, 15 to 28 April 2018, Central Grand and Bangkok Convention Center at Central World. Laguna Phuket Marathon 2018, 9 to 10 June 2018, Phuket. Pattaya Marathon 2018, 14 to 15 July 2018, Pattaya, Chonburi. MotoGP 5th to 7 October 2018, Chang International Circuit, Buriram. Ironman 70.3, 25th November 2018, Phuket. Kings Cup Jet Ski World Cup, December 2018, Jomtien Beach, Pattaya, Chonburi. Experience Thailand sports tourism. In the new perspective, Thailand will provide you enjoyable experience, the uncompared. Amazing Thailand!
So how's it? So if you want to introduce your sport to Thailand, I would say the opportunity is there, especially with the newer generation, because they always want to expose to the new activities. And for example, like the cycling, as you have seen in the video. There are 2 key reasons to work with the local media in Thailand, I think. As one, to overcome cultural differences, and 2, to have access to the local market. It's like to get Thai to talk with the Thai. Have the goals are increased awareness of the sport, increase audience attendance and over watching live, increase participation in the sport. I will now cover the range of international and local media in Thailand. Here are international media available in Thailand. Of course, this is you have seen this in other countries too. And this is in Thailand. There are more than 20 Thai TV stations which produce and centrally broadcast from Bangkok. Provincial TV does exist, but you are better just go to the national stations, I would say. And this is, however, if you have like the limited budget, I would suggest this is the ones that you should look at, because only 5 dedicated TV sports and 1 radio stations. If you have the very tight budget, you go to the top line, especially the one on the left and the one on the right. That's so good. And this is the printing one. There are 6 Thai language daily newspaper and 2 English language daily newspaper. Over the Thai newspaper, 6 of them have their own section over the sport, 1 or 2 pages, it depends. Although the Bangkok Post and the Nation, that's English language, haven't got the sport section, but I would say that's a very good ones to go for, because you are going to get a very good credibility. This is the outdoor billboards, are popular in Thailand too. This one is on the main road from the airport. I'm sure most of you saw this. Also, this indoor billboard, which many of you would have seen when you arrived at the airport a few nights ago. These are the local online media if you want to do like the UGC for the millennials, especially the one on the left, the line one, that's very popular here in Thailand. In dealing with the media in Thailand, I have got some tips for you. As one, content is the king, so the press kit is so important. There is a very high potential that the press kit will go directly to air or to publish to the channel. Although the media landscape has changed a lot in the past few years, you still need the traditional media in conjunction with the digital media. The established traditional media gives trust and credibility. 3, advertorial is highly recommended to use. It is advertising within the newspaper article, you know. It's better to get your content to where your audiences are likely to read. And 4, over the approach. Although it's good to do the rational approach, but you need to be aware that Thai people, they like fun and the colorful side. So please use the sensational approach for them too. In summary, by using the local media, you will overcome with the cultural differences, have better access to the local media. For best result, you use the local to talk with the local. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. The next one, I would like to introduce my colleague, Kitisak. He's a sport moderator here to share his experiences. Welcome, Kitisak.
First of all, thank you, Kun Pavina, for her introduction. Thank you, James Pierce, for my introduction as well. My name is Kitisak, and I work 2 jobs. I work for the mobile operator. I'm in charge of IoT. But on the other life, I'm working as a media, like some of you. I'm a golf commentator on TV at the moment. I'm working with professional golf tournament. I work with other TV station as a commentator. I'm write as a journalist. So I utilize my 24 hours a day well. So I'm here as a representative of the local media, sharing my experience working with international sports event, and hope that some of the feedback I provide you today would be helping you with your upcoming international event or to organize a sports event around the world, especially here in Thailand. My strategy proposing to you for the local media are very simple. There are 6 categories that you need to be aware of to provide, to build, remember, consider, make, and be something that the local media needs for you. Every media needs content. Inspiring content will be great. For example, I would like to share some of the inspiration that happened. Around 1994, there is a tennis tournament called PTT Pattaya Open. It wasn't famous at the beginning. You have players from WTA Tour to come and play in Pattaya. But in 1996, everything became very popular because one of the local, Tamarin Thanasukan, reaches the final. And that was a very good story for the local press to build on. They keep on building that story. So 1997, 98, 99, 2000 and onward, PTT Pattaya Tennis Open was crowded. They want to see whether Tamarin repeats that kind of excitement again. Would there be any Thai player reaching that level? But unfortunately, even though there wasn't any Thai player reaching that far, but the world-class player and the tennis and excitement itself leads PTT Pattaya Open to be one of the sporting events that is very important for the media calendar to remember and to be there. Nowadays, there are lots of technology. The millennium would be watching on different type of device, but making a friend with a media is very important. I'm going to provide some example on Honda LPGA recently. Honda LPGA has been in Thailand for quite some time. It was very popular, but it's starting to be very touchy for Thai people, even younger generation. I went to the event myself. I see a local children, hundreds of them go to Honda LPGA Thailand to see the golfer. Why? Because they work with local media. They have a good relationship with local media. They have a dedicated media day rather than a normal press conference where they get a local media people to hang together with IMG, with Honda, who is the main sponsor, and with the LPGA official themselves in order to create some theme for that particular year event. Previously, they got all the famous players dressed in Thai. People loves it. Not only the Thai people ourselves, but the fans around the world is excited to see Michelle Wee, to see Feng Chan, to see the Korean player dressed in Thai style. But this year was a little bit extra because the top player goes with the sponsor to do a particular CSR campaign. And there are so many children who they have visited, decided to come to Thailand. They don't play golf, come to Bangkok or come to Pattaya and visit the Honda LPGA itself. This kind of relationship happened because they have good relationship with local media. The idea has been exchanged through those kind of activities. So if you have good relationship with local media, I'm sure that the efficiency of the communication that you want to convey to your audience could be successful. I think it's pretty much similar to all around the world. The deadline of different media is very important to be remembered. In Thailand, in where I'm working, in our Thailand golf tour that we organize a professional golf tournament, we have to prioritize the event for certain media. We have live coverage on TV, so the live coverage on TV comes first. So right after the TV coverage, we have a group of TV news, sports news, to take the event right after, because they have certain timeline to get it on air in that particular evening. Next will be a newspaper, because they need to write some story, but they are not as hurry as the news TV, because news TV, they need some time to deliver the content via internet, via whatever technology they are using, so it takes some time. Then the other TV program, interview, magazine could come later. Remembering, understanding, categorizing the content that you have would help the media work easier. The media environment is essential to us. I was in Busan, I was in Japan for the Asian Games, I was in certain country for Southeast Asian Games as well. The information is very crucial for the media, especially for the Taiwan. Some of the local media are not very keen in English, so they need to get information. Some of the website, unfortunately, I'm not naming it, but it's not even worth going into in the recent international sporting event. So it's not helpful. I'm working as a TV commentator. My source of information are from the books, from talking to the players, from internet. Therefore, the information provided in that particular sporting event, especially athlete biography, what they have won, what they like, what are their age, where they live. This kind of thing is very important. The facility itself is also very important. If you provide a good facility, your content will be delivered on time. I have experienced myself that some of the area where they provide internet with the low speed, none of the TV station in Thailand could deliver the content to be on air in this country on time. Therefore, considering something for the media would be beneficial. Social media. Everybody is interested in social media. I can share you from my hat working with DTAC, which is mobile operator in Thailand, that in Thailand, social media is very important, especially to the younger generation. World population, we have 2/3 of people in the world using smartphone right now. In Thailand, it's approximately around 60 to 70% smartphone penetration. If you understand the local behavior of those who are using social media, you will be able to tap into their interest. You could be successful in whatever you want to deliver to the viewer, to the spectator, to the patron, or whatever you so call them. Understanding, for example, in Thailand, we are using internet average per day at the highest rate in the world. 9 hours and 38 minutes average a day, which means that most of the time our eyes are on either computer or tablet or telephone. Via smartphone, it's 4 hours and 56 minutes. We have traffic jam. What else are we going to do rather than watching things on our mobile phone? Social media that the Thai is accessing most is definitely Number one is Facebook. We have 70 million population. We have 51 million Facebook accounts. Only very old people doesn't have Facebook, believe it or not. Number two is YouTube. Everybody is watching YouTube. If you can somehow preempt your sports event on YouTube, create a YouTube channel, work with a particular local YouTube channel, I'm sure that your information will be reached the Thai people easily. Number three is Line. Line is a Japanese company application, similar to WhatsApp. We don't use WhatsApp. Don't know why. We like Line because they have sticker. Believe it or not. Some of them free, some of them pay. We pay a lot of money on those stickers itself. And this is the local behavior. In Instagram is also number 5 in popularity. Skype is rarely used by local people. WhatsApp, you can forget that. Only certain people use it. I have it on my phone. I seldomly use it. Twitter, number of Twitter is around 30% of the access, but the content of the Twitter must be in Thai. Last, it's about being localized. I'm sure that if you are in Europe, in the US, the communication in English is easy. But if you are in this region, in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, Korea, Japan, you need to be localized. Not localized in terms of printing, in terms of information delivered in Thai itself, but I think you need to be localized in thinking as well, understanding them and know their traditions. Some of the examples that I can provide you is that we have a golf tournament called King's Cup. And the organizer is Asian Tour. They are international company located in Singapore. We almost have a problem with the government because the trophy itself was from the king. And they want to do like the other international golf event where they want to put the trophy on the ground and film the trophy from the ground upward back to the clubhouse. But our trophy is given by king. We can't do that. Therefore, understanding that tradition, understanding the local, I think you win the heart and you'll be successful in whatever you do, especially in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. I'm sure for many of us after our week in Bangkok, or however many days you've been here, and the wonderful warmth and hospitality and experiences we've had, there'll be many people who are looking to come back here. So I think the advice that we've heard over the last half hour or so will be invaluable. So thank you very much to both of you. And Kitisak was just saying here that WhatsApp's not a big deal, but this is not about WhatsApp now. We're going to talk just about the app. And Motta, who you heard from a little bit earlier, who's, oh, there he is. He's going to return to the stage, and I've been looking forward to this all day, so no pressure, Motta, but he's going to tell us all about the app and the development of an app and how to use an app, and then there'll be time for some questions afterwards, I think. Over to you, Motta.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So before we take a deep dive into what we call our mobile app workshop, I'd like to just first of all give you guys an overview on the FIBA digital strategy. And first of all, what's the role of digital at FIBA? And it's mainly to communicate our events, to communicate basketball, to promote our events, expose our commercial partners, such as Tissot and Nike, and among other partners that we have. support our basketball stakeholders, so the FIBA family, what we call, and our national federations, and mainly as well to support the overall FIBA strategy, which is to promote basketball and to make it one of the biggest sports and played in the world. And how do we do that? How do we come up to these, and how do we support that? Our head of digital, Nicolas Chapard, may put us to the task to every piece of content, every piece of every product that we came up with has to have these pillars, which is we need to think of getting new fans. We need to think of engaging fans with new experiences. We need to push the content where fans are. And that's what we discussed actually in the panel before, is that it's no longer about trying to bring the fans in, but it's actually trying to provide them with the experience, the consistent experience across the board, regardless of where they are. Not to mention as well, we work a lot with our national federations and our players to give them knowledge on how to use digital, how to use their social media, where we've been doing quite a lot of workshops lately for that. And again, to create value for a partner. So these are questions that we ask ourselves every time we come up with something new. And how do we do that? What are the tactics that we're using? We're focusing on video mainly. Like I mentioned before, we went from producing 4 clips a game to over 700. Regular and engaging content, so it's not only now about producing constant content, but it's about producing it regularly and providing this regularity for all our platforms, whether it's on the website, on the mobile applications, etc. Segmenting the content. Even from here, people will probably consume Facebook and Instagram differently than on the different platforms. So you're not going to be doing the same things on each platform. So this is a type of segmentation. As well, from your country as well, you're not the same. You're not going to be consuming the content or the basketball content the same way if you're from the Philippines, or if you're from Thailand. You're not going to be consuming it the same way as a French fan. Providing a minimum coverage to all our events. We treat all our events equally. We try to stream and show our events all over the world. One of our biggest success stories is our youth events, where we stream them all on YouTube, and the numbers just speak for themselves. Like I said, with our U16 in Asia, we had 5.6 million. And 2 years ago, with our youth events, we had over 20 million. So that's something that we noticed, that live streaming even for the youth events, for the small events, is actually quite important. Becoming trendsetter and disruptive. So we try to every year to come up with something new. And last year, something new was not only the videos, but it was also the mobile applications that I will talk about. Be mobile first. Not only in the past few years, in the analytics, we noticed that's almost 60 to 70% of our audience is mobile, whether it's on Facebook or on the website, and assist our stakeholders. But all of that comes under the umbrella of having the fans at heart. So whatever we build, whatever we construct, the website design, the mobile application design, has to have the fans in our mind. How the fans is going to consume it. And this is the most important thing for us. Before we get to why we came up with a mobile application framework for a family of apps, initially in 2014, FIBA had one app that ruled them all, which was for all the events. It was a challenge technically, but we noticed from that experience that we needed some segmentation. So we decided to go with a family of apps. And why do we need it? It's because our fans are mobile, 70% of them. So they have to consume things on mobile. It's a new channel for our partners. It's a new channel for distribution of our content. The more content we have to find new ways to distribute it. Mobile apps are extremely customizable compared to any other platform. Right now, our mobile apps, actually, you can select your favorite team, your favorite player, and it will offer you billions of possibilities, because what I would choose will not be the same as the ones you would choose. So, and then it will adapt the screen and it will adapt the notifications. And then the power of notifications is extremely important. We see that as soon as a notification is sent, our traffic just spikes up. So those, we notice that it's something that we can directly talk to fans with through the notification, customize the experience, and we noticed that we needed that. But how do we create multiple apps besides breaking the bank? Because as you may know, the cost of one mobile application can be extremely costly. So we developed this mobile app framework that can create several applications with one single vision, which is to create a unique live basketball experience for basketball fans around the world. So the fans are in there, they're following the game, they're able to use it as a second screen, but they also can use it as a main screen. And that's what we wanted. How do we do that on an event level? And what was our technical vision for that? Which is to create a mobile application framework, which allowed us to language base our apps, to standardize all the different apps for the multiple events that we have, and create a go-to-market. We can confidently say right now, that we can release apps within 5 weeks for any of our events, from the start of the development till it's in the App Store. And that helped decrease tremendously, at least by 90%, the cost of the actual application development, by creating this backbone of mobile applications. The result was last year, after 25 developers, over 10 other people that were participating in it from our team, and the help of designers. We created 4 mobile applications within 6 months, and within the same framework. As you can see, they all sometimes they look the same, but the look and feel for the branding is different. For the World Cup, which goes on from the qualifiers last year all the way to the World Cup in 2019, next year, in China. Last year we had also the Eurobasket, and the Basketball Champions League, and the EuroLeague Women. So from what you see is 4 different competitions, 4 different competitions formats, 4 completely different setups, but it's the same framework that is using it behind it. And coming up soon is the Women's Basketball World Cup app, which is going to happen in Tenerife in September. But what's important to notice is why as well we use this framework, because we constantly wanted to evolve our products, and the new competition system of FIBA provided us this continuity for the content. And we don't have any more seasonality where it's only the summer. Now we have the qualifier windows, which provide us content on a regular basis all the way to the World Cup, and even after the World Cup. So we needed something that can evolve with the fans, that can stay with the fans, that the fans can follow all the time and not lose interest in between competitions. The result of these family of apps, because we based it on our analytics, the engagement was extremely high, around 10 screens per sessions for each app, 8 minutes per session. That's way above industry standard, and overall a 4.9 rating on the App Store. So that's it shows that if you look at your analytics and you base your strategy, your mobile strategy, and your design on what the fan wants, it's important you will achieve your engagement, and that engagement was one of our main goals for that. And with that, we created value for our partners. So some of the examples that we created was our partner is Tissot, and as soon as there was a buzzer beater, we created this Tissot buzzer beater notification that every single user would receive automatically as soon as the video is tagged on that. So you want to start with an application. You want to create an application. What are the questions that you want to ask? Where do you start, basically? And you need to always start with your audience. You need to always start with your fans. What does your audience want? What does your fan want? And looking at your analytics and your Facebook insights and your Twitter insights, all of that, and aggregate it in one. Where they're spending most of the time. Where are they accessing it from? And are they on tablet or are they just on mobile? And we've noticed for us is that most of the fans come to our websites to get the live stats. So that was our main feature. And that was the feature that we actually put the most weight on in terms of development and testing, because it was the driver for our traffic. What is the minimum that you can offer? So you need to create your MVP, your minimum viable product. So pick certain feature, not try to do everything at the same time, or not try to put everything that is on your website inside your mobile application, because it wouldn't work, because the formatting would be different. There's also some technical requirements that you would need to have, is your infrastructure on the cloud? If not, then you should consider doing it, because mobile applications require a lot of real-time data, and only the cloud can provide you with that. Which phone are you going to support? Is it Android? Is it just iOS? Or is it both? If both, which version? Or which? And with Android, it's actually even more complicated, because you have the Huawei's, you have the Samsungs, you have many of them. So you need to also range it a little bit and select the top 10 ones that your audience is your top 10. And will the tablet be supported, and all of that. Now the next one is, do you have a content or sports API? So an API is your door to opening up your database of photos, of videos, of articles to the outside world. And it connects to your mobile app. If you have that, it's very important. You're already one step ahead. If not, develop it, because it will be the backbone of your app. And the last two would be, is my content mobile friendly, and what can I automate? What can I make simple enough to send notifications? So what we decided to do is the start and the end of the games and the quarters, we will send notifications, or when a player has a certain highlight, we will send them notifications automatically if you are subscribed to that player or to that team. But the two most important questions are actually very technical, which is, do I need a mobile backend, and do I split between my website and my mobile backend? And the answer is yes. You don't want to be basing off your entire infrastructure on one single database. You want to split them both, but having the same content management system powering it all. So this is the main focus that you have to ask yourself. From our experience, what we've learned from these mobile applications is that you need to keep it simple at first. Mobile application is an evolving product. You start with a simple, and then you build on it as soon as it's tested, as soon as the users are providing you with more of that. Test it. It's important to test everything before you launch. We had a 2-month stabilization period, and where we discovered things that we've never seen before, like games changing their time, players getting injured and not even going on the rosters. Anything can happen, so you need to test it for a long period of time, or a decent period of time, for you to when you go on market, you don't have any of these issues, and you're like, that was not in the requirement, so we can't do anything about it now. Split the development as well in group of features. So it would make it easier if you say that I'm gonna take the live stats, the photos, and the articles, and I'm gonna bundle them in one development cycle. So I'll work on that for 1 month, test it for a week, and then move on to the next batch of features. Because it will just make it easier to test it, and also to make it, to debug it, for instance, to remove the errors from it. And if you decide to go on the mobile app route, work with the app stores right away. Get in touch with them, tell them that you're developing a mobile application, because it's super important. 80% of actually the downloads come from the app stores. They don't come from Facebook. It's actual people searching your app and downloading it. This is why as well you have to choose the right name. You need to know what people are actually searching for. So if our event is called our event was called the FIBA Eurobasket 2017, the app should have the same name because that's what people actually would be searching for. Don't push it too much, which means that don't use too many notifications. We notice that as soon as we add a little bit, one extra automated notifications, people start unsubscribing. So it's not. So you need to find that balance between what you send and what you don't send. Update the app constantly. So don't forget it. Don't just launch it and just forget about it. It needs to evolve for it to reappear as well on the App Store and to keep the fans engaged. And don't forget that your marketing goals as well as your performance and technical goals are to be reviewed every 3 or 4 months. So the future of mobile and the future of mobile apps exist, and it's here. Most people actually are on their phone all the time. And you'll see in my last slide that it's not about getting mobile app or not, it's actually which mobile app to develop for your audience. So mobile is all about real time, and it's about providing context, the right context for your audience. So using the artificial intelligence, we only scratch the surface here at FIBA with the AI, which is we adapted the screens of the apps by the user preferences. And it's about as well providing the right user, the right time, and the right location, the right content for them. So that's the future of mobile applications: is that you're constantly with them, and you're providing them the content where they are. So to wrap up, again, the question is no longer whether you should have an app. The question is what app you should develop for your fans that will create real value. Thank you all. And don't forget to download the World Cup app, please. Thank you.
Should we stay here for a moment and see? We got some questions from the audience there. Well, again, while they're having a think, let me ask you a couple. Cost, I know you sort of brushed over a little bit about the cost, but roughly how much is that kind of app going to cost?
So in general, a mobile application will cost you, from previous experiences, not just this one, it will cost you from the simple one to the very complicated one, between 100K to 500K USD. And the breakdown of it is that it goes from mostly design and development and then you add sort of 5% of project management, etc. But most of the cost will come on the design, user experience, and the development of the framework itself. So that's roughly what depending on you would do. So if you are going to do just stats or historical data, this would be just around the 200K version. And if you want to add everything like live streaming and etc., it would be like a $500,000 investment, because it's not. But the thing with those is that it's a one-off investment, and then everything else is maintenance, because the framework is just. So adaptable.
How much would you pay for maintenance over every year?
Around 10, 20K. Okay. So it's not a big investment compared to the amount of technologies. I mean, for hosting of a website, this is what usually any IF would pay. So it's important to put that into perspective. That it's an investment that is real, that is important, but it's a one-off investment to future-proof your organization.
It's still a significant investment for a small IF. I mean, you were saying when you were one of your final slides, it's not a question of whether you have an app, it's about what app you have. But if you're an IF with a small budget, and you're having to choose maybe between maintaining a good social media feed, an app, or something else, why would you argue that perhaps it's the app that people should go for?
The app would be sort of the aggregator of them all. On our app framework, we have sort of what we call the latest feed, which is sort of what depending on what the users preferred or favorited. So if I put, so I go on the World Cup app and I choose my favorite players, Boris Diaw, Brazil's team, and Team USA, I will see a series, an aggregation of content different from someone who selected Slovenia, Philippines, and Terence Romeo, for instance. So those are things that are that is adaptable, that is not possible on social media itself or on a website. It's the aggregator and the customization of the experience for the user. So this is why it's quite important.
Anyone thought of any questions you'd like to ask in the meantime? The lady at the back there. She'll have a seat, shall we, while she's asking a question.
No worries.
Hi, sorry, I just have a really quick questions on what you mentioned before about the engagement.
Yep.
When you said 10 screens per session and 8 minutes per session, could you elaborate that to your app's context, please?
I'm sorry, I just didn't hear the last part.
Oh, could you elaborate that in your app's context? Like, what do you mean by 10 screens per session?
As soon as someone enters on the app, on average during our events and during the time that they spent on the app opened, looking at it. It's not in the background. It's not. So it's basically similarly if you go on Facebook and you're scrolling, this is the amount of time that we're calculating. And what we've noticed is that they spend quite a bit of time. Like 8 minutes is quite high because we've noticed that they follow the games on it while watching the game on TV or on live streaming. So that's what we've noticed, is that they consume the live stats and they try to get the box scores and the player stats as the game evolves. So this is why they're spending quite a bit of time on it.
So you're saying that they are actually using it as like something extra rather than live streaming from the app?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we don't have currently live streaming on the app. It is one of the projects because we're trying to evolve the product as well. But yeah, so they use it as a second screen experience to follow the game.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions at all? One more for me then. There's you were giving those the statistics, and the lady at the back was just mentioning one of them. There's 8 minutes at a time, which is obviously a really impressive statistic. The statistic right at the top of that screen was you had about 335,000 downloads.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that doesn't seem that many. It's obviously your core audience, isn't it? But in a way, if you're trying to grow a sport, your core audience are going to be with you anyway. If you're trying to grow a sport, are there not arguments actually for putting the money somewhere else to help grow it rather than dealing just with your core audience who you've already won over in many ways?
Absolutely, and we know that the number of downloads is not extremely huge, but our main focus was engagement on the app. We wanted to engage the core fans first, and then have the downloads as a second stage. We've actually planning acquisition campaign, and we're learning from these first experiences on how to get more downloads. So that's the main issue, but the opportunity that we have is that we used the past 6 months to learn on our user behavior on the apps and see if it's actually a good product. And then we start pushing it to the external core audience that we outside of the core audience to that, because we wanted to make it right before it's fully published and pushing it. And you also, what you need to understand is that it takes a little bit of time to understand the cost per acquisition and to get more downloads for that. So it needs a little bit of build up for that to happen. And luckily we have the new competition system that provide us this continuity of content. Like now we don't have an off season anymore. So we basically are constantly creating content and creating products every day. So this is the benefit of it, that we need to constantly evolve the product and try to push it further.
And leading on from what we were talking about with the millennials earlier, how many apps would a millennial have on their smartphone? Is there a very high bar? So if they're adding your app, they're deleting something else, or actually is there a kind of an infinite number of apps which they're prepared to have?
From the researches that we've seen is that they have quite a bit of them, and they will use 80% of them, they will focus more on 5 main ones, and then 20% will be on other apps that are in that moment hot. So that's the main thing. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to push it in the right time for you. So if you're during your event, this is when you make the most promotion, basically.
We're out of time. That is the end of Media Accord for 2018. You're allowed to cry quietly in the corner. But before I do that, thank you, Muddy. You've done a double whammy for us today, double header. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Thank you, the stalwarts, for staying right to the end today. The bar, I think, well, I don't know what time it's open, but I'm sure it's open fairly soon. So we'll see a few of you down at the bar a little bit later on. But thank you very much for spending the afternoon with us.
Thank you.